I want Brother and Sister Tolman to come up and share with us. They're just back from the Holy Land. If you got questions, ask them. Don't ask me after they leave. I wasn't there. They forgot to invite me. But I couldn't go, and there's a lot that I know will be interesting to you. So, Brother and Sister Tolman, come right on, and you can use this. You guys can just use this mic and.
Elizabeth if she had her article with her all the way up here this morning. She was reading some articles that she's written for some local newspapers, asked her to write about our journey to Israel. She was reading it to me, and she was bringing things to my remembrance that I had forgotten about, that we saw and we did in Israel. But she said she left it in the car.
I'll go get it.
Maybe she's got it in her brain. Go ahead and tell them what all you have.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you how we got there. Last July at the International Convention, we went to the missions breakfast. And we were looking for a place to sit, and everybody was taken, except there was room at the table with the missions from Israel. So we said, okay, we'll sit with them. Well, it turned out these people, this couple, we got to talking with them, and they invited us to come see them in Israel. And Randy, whom I'd only been married to about 7 months, he says, okay, we can go for our first anniversary. And I said, what? So anyway, we started making plans. We arranged to be there from November 1st, or leave November 1st, to be there till November the 10th. And these people that we had just met, I mean, they didn't know us from Adam. They took us into their home. They treated us like family. They gave us a personalized tour of this amazing place. And we were blessed beyond measure. The land of Israel is the Holy Land, but it's a land where people live. It's not heaven yet. And I was shocked at the trash along the roadsides. I was shocked that the people drive like demons out of hell. And there were a lot of things that shocked me. But we were blessed to go to the sites that are important to the Christian religion, the Judaic faith. And surprisingly, the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims live in a fair amount of peace with each other. So, why don't you say a little bit so I can think some more?
The one thing that really impressed me was the separation between the Jews and the Arabs and the Muslims, and they all live in the same country. Israel is only about the size of New Jersey, and there's 8 million people that live in Israel, and hardly none of them live in the southern part of Israel because that's all desert. So in half of a place the size of New Jersey, you have 8 million people. And all of these different religions of the world, Muslims, Christians, Jews, they all claim the land as their own. And they really, to be honest with you, they really don't like each other. They really don't. They they put guards up between the Palestinians area and the Israeli area. And if you're a Palestinian, you're not allowed to come into the Israeli area. The Israelis don't supply any infrastructure, any support or anything to the Palestinians, and back and forth and back and forth. It's just amazing how they're all there together and yet they're not together. And the Catholic Church is the #1 Christian organization in the land, and they don't get along with the Muslims or the Jews, either. And so there's really not a lot of love to be embraced unless you're fortunate enough to be blessed like we were, to be taken in by fellow believers. And they took us to the first night we were there, we went to Jerusalem. From Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we stayed in a motel for 2 nights.
Is it Bethlehem?
No, it was in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And we stayed in the motel there, and that motel is run by Christian people that, as a matter of fact, the guy who runs it used to be the European head of Samaritan's Purse. So we had a connection with them because Samaritan's Purse purchased our campground and stayed there at the campground for 16 months. And so it was good to be with Christians, but to see all of the other things, the way people treat each other, was not so good. Now, for the good part, though, I mean, we got to see our host took us everywhere. I mean, we spent almost the whole time in the car, driving everywhere. We went to just about every site you can think of in northern Galilee, and all the way from the Lebanese border all the way down to Bethlehem, and all the way from the Jordan border all the way over to the Mediterranean Sea. And it was amazing, the different places that we saw. And yeah.
My turn, huh? Okay, the people that we stayed with lived on the 4th floor of a family house. Because land is non-existent in the city we went to, the law requires that the houses should be built one on top of the other. So if a family is fortunate enough to have property, then whoever owns the property builds the first layer. If they have children, the children can build on the second layer, or the third layer, or the fourth layer. So our host lived on the 4th layer. Believe it or not, this man had a flock of chickens who lived on a roof also. And they had trees and plants that were also growing on the roof. So it was very interesting to see how they lived their lives.
And by the way, for those of you that aren't aware of it, roosters cannot tell time.
No, they know when 4 o'clock in the morning
That rooster
is.
crowed all night and all day.
He was kind of like the Muslim prayer leader who calls people for prayer 5 times a day, including 4 o'clock in the morning. And he's up on this mountain a couple of blocks away from where we stayed. So he's out loud.
They have a big loudspeaker, and they call the people to pray in Arabic over this loudspeaker all over the village. They call it a village, but it's like 5,000 people. But they call it a village because you have to have 20,000 to be called a city.
So when they said they lived in a village, I'm thinking Warda. I'm thinking something small. And when we drove up to their village, there's houses, well, there's buildings everywhere. I can't call them houses because it's one on top of the other. So on the other side of the people was a Catholic church. I mean, directly next door. And the time that we were there, they were starting to practice for their Christmas pageant with drums, loudly. The same time the Muslim prayer leader is doing his prayer, they're doing their drumming.
The Catholic bell tower is just outside of the window of the living room from the house that we're in, and at 12 o'clock they start ringing the bell, and the Muslim guy is over the loudspeaker saying the Muslim prayers, and the Catholic bell is ringing, and
I guess that's a reminder for everyone to pray.
so everybody needs to pray in Israel.
I could tell you all kinds
Yeah,
of
we could
stuff,
go on and on, we don't want to take
but
all the
ask
time,
questions.
But if you have any questions, anything particular that you want to ask about, we'd be glad to take your questions.
Did your cell phones work?
Yes,
Yes, but if you were going to call without using a certain adapter or a certain program, that the bill for us would have been $10 a day for one and $5 a day for the second. And we haven't gotten the bill yet to see if anything went on there, because I tried to use another app, but I don't know if I was really successful with it, because I sent text and emails without using that app. And I may hear about the man who owns our cell phone plan.
if you do go to Israel, you need to get a converter to plug into the wall, because they don't have the same kind of plugs that we do, but they make a converter you can put in there, and then you can plug your cell phone or your iron or whatever you need into that converter. They're only about $10, but
I bought one
you need
from
to have-
Walmart. We went to use it and it had the wrong kind of plugs.
Yeah,
So it would have been next to useless. Except our host was nice enough to go to a cell phone store and he found something there that worked and got us out of a crack. So anyway, any more questions? Because, yes ma'am.
Did you find any unusual foods? You could tell us.
I found out that parsley is more than just a decoration on the plate. They had parsley salads, and all this parsley just ground up and a little bit of stuff added, and I think, okay, receiving this in love.
every time you go to any restaurant to eat, you sit down, they bring you the menu and they ask you what you would like to drink, and while you're waiting for them to bring your water or whatever, they bring out either anywhere from 6 to 10 bowls of different salads, and they set it on your table. And you could literally get full from just the bread and the salads that they put on the table. Most of them, in my Texas way of tasting, did not taste good, because they were covered with olive oil. Everything is covered with olive oil. And olive trees are everywhere. Olive oil is the #1 product in Israel, bar none. It is the #1 product, except maybe fresh olives. But they put olive oil on everything, yes.
Did you get to go to the wall or to the?
Yes.
We did go to the Wailing Wall, and the wall is there, and there were a lot of people there at the wall doing different ceremonies and praying, and you kind of have to walk down a steep ramp to get to it, and Elizabeth didn't really want to walk down there because she would have had to turn around and come back up. So I said, well, I'm going to go down there. So I started walking down. I got about maybe 1/8 of the way down, and these two women ran up to me and said, "Sir, sir." And I said, "Yes." And they said, "You can't go there. This is the women's side. You have to go to the other side and go down the other side. That's the men's side over there." So all the women go down this side to pray, and all the men go down this side, and there's just a little space in between them, about the size of this hallway in the church. But so I turned around, went back, and went down to the men's side.
So
And
while
took some pictures down there.
While we were at this area, there's a lot of singing going on and a small band and a lot of joyfulness. And I asked our host what was going on, and this was groups of people having bar mitzvahs for their boys who were turning 13 years old. And so one group had a procession, but behind them was another group, and then another group. I think there were at least 5 groups where boys were getting bar mitzvah that day. And they were celebrating a beautiful celebration. Of course, they had their singing and their music, but the families also took a bunch of balloons. And somewhere along the way, they let their balloons loose to honor, to celebrate with these boys. And it was really, really cool watching the families be joyful, because the state of Israel has only been back in action since 1948, but it's so full of life now that God spoke to those dry bones and brought them to life again, and it's amazing to see what He has done.
The cities like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Haifa, they are modern cities. You would think you was in Houston, Texas, or some city like that. There's skyscrapers and street lights and wide paved roads and parks and everything, just like modern cities. And I don't know if y'all are like me, but when I thought about Israel before that, I'm thinking about, camels and people walking around with robes on and sandals and with their staff, but it's not that way. It's a very modern place now. But having said that, there are still people walking around with robes and sandals and staffs and camels. Most of them are saying, "Hey, for $4 you can ride the camel," But still, they're still there.
One of these hawkers was trying to sell me something, and he says, "I love you. Why don't you buy this from me?" Yes, you got a question?
Did you get to visit Jesus' empty tomb?
Yes, and it was empty. He was not there because he arose. Yeah, we got to see that.
Yeah.
And we also saw the place where he was born. And in the Bible, it talks about a lowly little manger and a cave, and how
Sanitary.
uncaring it was, whatever that, yeah.
Sanitary.
Yeah, it was not a nice place. But would you believe the place that they say where Jesus was born has got a gold star, and there's all kinds of things, and I think there's a statue of Mary in a gold outfit, and
They built a big cathedral over the top of it, and they put a star in the ground and saying, "This is the very spot where Jesus was born," and so people can go up there and lay down, put their hand on the star and take their picture. And it's very, very commercialized. Every place, every biblical place, like the place where he was baptized, the place where he was born, the place where he prayed, the place where he was crucified. Every place in the Bible, they've made big cathedrals, and they have little people running around telling you to be quiet and don't speak inside the cathedral, It's very commercialized today. However, having said that, there is one place that is called Nazareth, and
before we go to Nazareth, let me tell him something about the place next door to where Jesus was born.
okay.
Okay. When Jesus was born, and the angel talked to Joseph and said, "You need to take Mary and the child and go to Egypt." Well, somewhere along the way, Mary nursed Jesus, and a drop of her milk fell on the floor. They made a monument out of that, because that drop of milk turned the rock white. And now mothers go there because they're either having a problem conceiving, or because their child is having a problem nursing. but this is the Grotto of the Milk. 1 drop of milk, and it's commercialized. Okay, now your turn.
So the ancient city of Nazareth, there's an organization that is restored, or they're in the process now of restoring a park in Nazareth, in the city of Nazareth, that is just like it was in Jesus' day. And you can walk through that park, and there's a shepherd there with some sheep in the pen, and there's some guys harvesting olives out of the olive tree. There's a carpenter making things out of wood using the old tools. There's a woman that I never knew this. I've always wondered, how do they make cloth out of sheep's wool? Well, she's got a pile of sheep's wool, and she pulls a little piece of it off, and she puts it on this little
Spindle.
wooden spindle, and she turns it, and it spins that wool until it becomes a string. And she rolls the string up on a ball, and then she takes that string and puts it on a hand weave, and she weaves it into a shawl that you can wear. And she was showing us how to do that. It's very interesting to see exactly how it was back then. There's a wine press, and they show you. They said they always take the young girls and let them stomp the wine, because they're not so heavy that the seeds come out. Just the juice comes out, and then the juice runs over a rock and down into a big another rock place, and they can dip it out and put it in the sheepskins.
They don't use people who weigh more than a teenage girl, because they don't want to break the seeds. And if you break the seed while you're making the wine, it's going to turn bitter. And they got to protect that wine. So, he's got a hand back there.
Yes.
Did you spot a Mexican restaurant?
Yes! There were several Mexican restaurants, several Oriental restaurants. I think I saw a few Italian restaurants.
There was Domino's Pizza, there was McDonald's, there was KFC, all of the fast food chains that we have here. We didn't eat at any of them, but I mean, they're all
I
there.
bet there wasn't any German
That was
food.
going to be my question. Was there a good Mexican restaurant?
There were some Mexican restaurants too.
It was that good? Nice. I mean,
But we didn't eat at the Mexican restaurant.
I bought at one of the restaurants, I got something that was called fajitas, and it had so many vegetables in there I couldn't find the meat. I even took a picture of it.
Did you find the fruits and vegetables larger, much larger than ours?
No,
No.
no. They're not any larger. They're fresh. Yeah, just everything that they serve you was fresh.
Well, the bananas were about half the size of what we get here, but we don't grow them here, and they grow them there. The banana plantations have a big netting that goes for acres and acres and acres, covering these plants to keep the birds out. But not only the bananas, the plums, the apples, whatever other fruits growing there, mangoes, guava, whatever, they cover them to protect them. And the first time I looked at it, I thought, that's a lot of water. And then I realized that's a covering for the banana plantation.
We did go to the Dead Sea, and I did swim in the Dead Sea, or tried to swim. I floated in the Dead Sea. You can't swim in it. You can float in it. You get in there, and your feet just automatically go up like that. You just lay there. You can't really splash around, because if you splash around, you'll get the water in your eyes, and it's full of salt, and it'll burn your eyes really bad. But you can float around out there. A lot of people take mud baths because there's a lot of mud going in, and they take the mud and they
It's
rub it off.
healing for them.
It's
They do it
supposed
for
to be healing for your skin, and I didn't get all muddy. I didn't want to have to wash it off with all that salt water, so. But I did go in swimming in the
Yes,
Dead
sir.
Sea.
Yes, we didn't go into the the building of Peter's house.
Yeah.
But we were in the Galilee area that was close to Capernaum. So I say yes, we did, but we didn't make a special trip to say Capernaum. We did go to the Jordan River baptismal sites. And that was after we went to the Sea of the Dead Sea. There's two sites we went to. One of the Jordan River baptismal sites, they think was the baptism site of Jesus. And right across the river wasn't any wider than this row of chairs. The Jordanian army is guarding their land because Jordan is across the river. So they're standing there with their guns to protect the land. So you better not decide you're going to get baptized and go to Jordan, because it would not be a pretty sight. So while we were at this particular location, I had the privilege, the honor of taking my brother-in-law's ashes and depositing them into the river, because his request before he died was to be buried in Israel. So I couldn't exactly bury him, but I had about 1/4 of a cup of his ashes that I committed to the water in Israel. Very emotional. Yes, sir.
Were your hosts native to Israel, or were they immigrants?
Yeah, our host is the national presbyter for Israel for the Church of God of Prophecy. And she is native.
They were both of them were Lebanese.
They were both born in Lebanon, but their families immigrated to Israel, and they both are Israeli citizens today.
The man's advice for their children is get out of here. There's nothing here for you to live for. Go someplace where you can make a life. And that's a pretty damning statement when it comes from somebody who's in a position like that, you don't have enough confidence in your country for your children to live there. He said, I want to see them do well. And
It's very difficult for them to make a living in Israel.
The wife says she likes to go shopping in Turkey because Turkey's clothing is more affordable than Israel's, and it's a better quality. And so about once a year, they make a trip to Turkey and they buy their stuff. And my man likes bacon. And our host did not have bacon in their house. So on Sunday morning, we took a trip to a grocery store a few miles from their house. It was a Russian grocery store. And we bought bacon and all kinds of stuff that you won't find in a kosher grocery store.
And I really appreciate Sister Ronette for doing that. However, she cannot cook bacon like my wife can. This is the best bacon cooker in the world, I tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way you could put pictures that you're talking about on the church website?
What I
So that
need
way
to
you could know what you're talking about?
What I need to do is download what I've got and make a thing. But yeah, between his pictures and my pictures, we tell a story, and I need to do that. So yes, it may take a little while, but we can do that.
We have a ton of pictures on our phones, but we just got back on the 10th, and what's today, the 20th? So we got back 10 days ago. And by the way, it took Elizabeth about 4 days to overcome the jet lag. It took me about a day and a half, I think. But so we've been busy since we came back, but we're hoping to put those pictures on like a DVD or something, so we can take them wherever we go and show them to people that are interested.
What I can do before I have the pictures, and we'll go with the pictures, is take the stories that I've typed. It's going to be like 5 sections. If you want a copy of the stories, I can email that to you after I've revised them again, but I'll need your email addresses, unless I send it to Abel and then Abel sends it on, but I don't know if all of you want that much reading or not.
Just send it to them, if they don't want to read it, they don't have to.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the approximate percentage of people in Israel who are Christians?
About, I think he said it's less than 18% of the country is Christian. And most of those are Catholic.
They do make a distinction between, well, the people we were with make a distinction between born-again Christians, Catholic Christians, Orthodox Christians, and any other kind of Christian. I guess the other kind would fall under the born-again category. But it's a lot of, they don't intend to be separatists, but it's built into their system that they don't have a complete unity. However, the man said he saw a Muslim become a Christian, and that man just glowed after he got baptized. So I guess there's exceptions to every rule, and there are people who can get along.
The streets in some of the older cities like Bethlehem, the street is about as wide as this aisle, and 2 cars are going this way.
No, one's this way, one's that way.
Yeah, going this way. And very, very seldom do you see a pickup truck or a full-size automobile. Almost all of the cars are little small cars, French-made cars, yeah, little small. They have some, he told me 3 different countries that most of their cars, I think Sweden makes a bunch of them, but they're all little small cars. I mean, 4 people fit in their car just fine, but that's about all you could get in there was the 4 of us.
And they have to park on the
They
sidewalk.
park on the sidewalk, they park in the middle of the street, they park, whoever honks their horn first has the right of way. I mean, our driver was amazing, the way he got through that traffic. It was just,
I yelled, ah! Many times.
it was just,
not
it
good.
was amazing the way he did. But he lives there, you know. He would holler at people and he would say, "I'm an Israeli, get out of my way!" You know? And if he got lost, he would just stop and roll down his window and start talking to some guy on the street and asking him, "How do you get here and there?" And they tell him how to get there, and he go, "Thank you," and they take off again.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you walk on the Via Dolorosa?
We did not. We wanted to go there, but we figured it'd be pretty difficult for Elizabeth to walk down the Via Dolorosa, so we did not go there.
But we have the souvenir book that shows us what the Via Dolorosa has. So we didn't see it firsthand, but we saw it in the book.
Now, I don't want to paint a picture that it's all bad. I will tell you this, one of the most, I'll rephrase that, the most peaceful place that I have ever been, and I've been a lot of places in the 74 years I've been on this planet, but the most peaceful place that I have found was the Garden of Gethsemane. You can walk into the garden just like Jesus did. You can walk in there. And when I walked in, I don't know if everybody feels it, but when I walked in there, I felt the spirit of peace in that place. The olive trees are like thousands of years old. And of course, they've maintained it and take care of it and all that. It's not exactly like it was when Jesus was there, but I believe His Spirit was there when I went there. It was so peaceful.
Those old trees that have been there for thousands of years are about 5 foot diameter. So you take about 4 of these chairs together and make a circle around them. That's how wide those trees are. And if they like in the Nazareth village, they tried to make it as much like Jesus' time as they could. They transplanted some olive trees. The ones that they took were 400 years old. And they dug a place and they transplanted them. And they said they have to cut back the roots every year and prune the top. Because if they don't cut back the roots, olive trees are going to be popping up everywhere. But it took root and they're growing and they're producing fruit. And that's part of their olive harvest there. Yes, ma'am.
Were you aware of any military activities?
Not activity, but there were soldiers in a lot of different places. Girls and guys carrying their big guns, and they didn't have to use them, thank God. But yeah, they're ready. They're prepared.
Mostly they were at the checkpoints between the Palestinian occupied areas and the Israeli occupied areas. At all the checkpoints they had military people there. I think one time they checked our passport, just one time. Usually they just said, go on, go on.
Someone asked us the name of the people that we were going to stay with. So I told them their name was Indros. And they said, okay, you can go.
That was in the airport when we had they were checking our passports, and they said, why are you here? First she said, is this your first time to Israel? And I said, yes. And she said, why are you here? And I said, well, we came on a pilgrimage and we've been invited by a fellow minister here. And she said, what's his name? And I said, Jules, and then I looked at Elizabeth and she said,
Indros.
Indra, and the lady goes, oh, okay.
If I'd have said Smith or Jones, I might have said, get out of here.
That would have been in trouble. Yes, ma'am. There were not, I did not notice too many black people who lived there. There were a lot of black people who were pilgrims who had come there. As a matter of fact, in the Jordan River, where the people were baptizing themselves, this one black lady went out and baptized herself, and when she came out, she was just so happy and thrilled, and she started singing, and Elizabeth, she had to walk up the steps, and so Elizabeth and I were walking up the steps with her, alongside her, so we just started singing with her, you know, and we're singing, walking up the steps, and praising the Lord with her, and we got up to the top, and another lady came over there and said, I want to take y'all's picture, you know. So she took our picture with her. She was from Nigeria, and she gave me her card. She makes cakes and cookies and sells them online and everything. So, yeah. But I didn't see a lot of people that live there, black people.
We did see people from every nation, busloads of people. There were Orientals and Hispanic and European, all kinds of European. It was just like the United Nations is meeting in Israel, in Jerusalem especially, that these people and the bus drivers and bus loads, it's kind of overwhelming to see how big and busy this place is.
One time I was wearing my Texas flag shirt, and one of the vendors said, oh, you're from Texas? And I said, yeah. And he said, I've been to Texas. He said, my brother lives in Dallas. He said, you want to buy something? I'm like, okay, give me a bag of cashews.
We did see a couple of travel trailers, RVs. For the most part, it was...
Not very many.
No, I think less than 5 is what we saw. Probably less than 10 pickup trucks altogether.
Any motorcycles?
Yes.
Lots and lots and
And
lots
they drive
of
crazy.
motorcycles.
The traffic is bad, the motorcycles are even
The
worse.
motorcycles are even worse than the traffic because you're like this, literally this close to the other car, and a motorcycle goes between you. How did they get through there? But a lot of that.
Yes, if I would have gone down to the wall, I would have had to wear a veil or a hat or something. He would have had to put on a skull cap, but I didn't do that. When I went before and I went to the wall, when you go up to the wall, you walk one way, but when you're finished putting your prayer request in, you have to back up because you can't turn your back on the wall. That would be disrespectful. But no, I wore my regular clothes.
So Brother Jewel said that when they go to the wall, they have these little tables out there in front of the wailing wall. And you go up to the table and they have these little notepads and you write your prayer requests on the notepad, and then you take that note and you fold it up and you go up to the wall and you put it in a crack in the wall. And then you pray for it, and then you leave the wall. And when I went up there, I didn't go all the way up to the wall, but I went up to where the tables were, and you can see the wall from there, and you can see all this trash, all these papers sticking out of the cracks in the wall. He said every night the maintenance people come through there and take all the prayer requests out and throw them away, and every day the wall gets filled up again with prayer requests, every single day. And it's a huge wall. It's really huge. We did see the wall. One place that was very interesting to me was way up on one of the highest mountains in Israel. We went up there because it's a place where King Herod had one of his forts and one of his palaces. They said it was his most favorite fort. And when you get up there, you can see why, because from that vantage point, he could look out and he could see the whole kingdom of Israel. You could see Bethlehem, you could see Jerusalem, you could see Jericho, you could look across there and you could see the whole ancient kingdom of Israel. And so you could understand why the king would want to be up there, so if he saw any invading armies coming, he could send his army out there and intercept them before they got close. It was very interesting to be way up there and have that vantage point.
This was the same King Herod that tried to kill Jesus when he was born. And I think it's the same King Herod who married his brother's sister and had John the Baptist killed.
The name of the mountain. Is it a mountain, right?
Herodian?
Herodian. Yeah, it was named after Herod, Herodian, or Herodian.
But he had another one called Masada. And we did not go to Masada. That was a whole lot more difficult to get to than Herodian.
Any other questions?
Dome of the Rock?
We saw the Dome of the Rock.
We saw it. We did not go up to it, but we saw it.
I didn't tell you about the crypts that people bought. When you get to look at the Dome of the Rock, and you're on this, like a patio type thing, and you're looking over the city, and the Dome of the Rock's over there, there are hundreds of funeral crypts that people bought $5,000 each before they died, so they would be assured of going to heaven when the Lord came back. They wanted to be the first ones to go up, so they paid the money to get buried in one of these crypts, and they're all above ground. And
they're making more.
People cannot be buried inside the city limits. They have to be outside. So this particular place is outside of the city limits.
She's talking about the city of Jerusalem, where the wall around Jerusalem, you know, that King Nebuchadnezzar tore down the wall, and then Nehemiah brought his men back and rebuilt the wall. Well, that wall is still there. and it separates this graveyard from the city. And so these people are getting buried right outside the wall, so they'll be close to the city, so that when the rapture takes place, they'll be the first ones to go. And they don't even believe in Jesus. But they do believe that the Messiah is coming to take them away.
This ain't where the East Gate is at, right?
What's that?
I don't think it's the East Gate. I don't know.
Yeah,
The Muslims walled up the East Gate,
yeah.
because Jesus supposedly entered the East Gate. And so they walled it up and they built a graveyard, because that's supposed to stop them from entering the East Gate. That's from what I understand. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can't correct you because
I
we
can't
don't know.
correct you 'cause I don't know. Okay, brother, I think,
But if you have any other questions, you can catch us and we'll
Yeah.
tell you tonight.
and Elizabeth's writing all this up, and so she'll get that to y'all through Brother Abel's email.
We'll be meeting back at 5 for a fellowship time dinner. Invite all of you to come. If you don't have anything to bring, just come and we'll enjoy this together. As we're getting ready to dismiss, we're going to greet the folks going out, and some of us, the brethren in here, if it happens, we want to stack the chairs just up against the wall in stacks, where we can set the tables up and everything. So may God bless you. Thank you for being here. Continue to pray for these requests. We know we're going to hear some great testimonies of victory.